Hi, I'm Bob Benson, the Executive Director here, and I think most of you know that, but I just wanted to introduce myself if you're new here and haven't met me yet. We do these regular fireside chats. This past month we were unable to do an Executive Director meeting because I was not here. I was actually on vacation, and I'm just very pleased to be back. In the last few days, we've heard several different concerns from residents, and so I'm going to be addressing those today. The first is inflation. I'm sure most of you have experienced that when you go to the grocery store or when you've tried to fill your gas tank or whatever. The inflation is affecting us all. And right now the pundits are saying somewhere between 8 and 10%. We don't know yet what that's going to be. However, it's affecting all of us, and it's affecting how we're spending our money here, and we're trying to stretch our dollars as much as we can, as we always do. And there are certain challenges with that. Related to that, we are in the process of doing the budget for next year. And it's a long process. People might not understand how much level of detail we go into, but it is a significant process. We are in it. We are not far enough into it to announce rates, but we are hoping that we can announce the rates a little bit earlier this year. Normally it's the last week of October, but we're trying to work things in such a way that we can announce them earlier. Now, I also know that Social Security announces their annual increase, usually sometime in October. We may be contemporary with that or not, but we are doing everything we can to minimize the impact of increases that we've already seen and that we're all experiencing. We have noticed a number of our contracts have increased significantly. One is telephone lines for the elevators. Who knew? We have been spending about $300 a month for telephone in the elevator that goes to one number, essentially an emergency number. And they recently increased that price from $300 to $1,000 without any forenotice. And so those are the kinds of things that we're seeing, just incredible expenses. And I'm sure you've seen that, the sticker shock going to the grocery store, for example. But we are in process with the budget. And I know that it's always a concern, will the money last? Because inflation always seems to go higher than what we can get in our investments. And I understand that personally, and also I see it around us. I do want to remind you, we do have the Rolling Green Village Assurance, is what I call it, the RGV Assurance. What that is if through no fault of your own, you run out of money, Rolling Green takes an application from you and will help people, presuming that they meet the requirements. Most of the people in the past have met the requirements, and we've helped people. We have some people now, and for the entire time that I've been here, we've been helping people. And that's why we have the Resident Benevolence Fund, or the Resident Assistance Fund. It goes by several names. But that's why we have those funds, and it's a protection for you. And nobody likes to run out of funds, and I understand that. It does happen. 2008 happened, and this last January happened as well. And we do have that assurance. And if you run low, just let me know. That process for the application, all that kind of stuff is handled very carefully, and it's very, very confidential. And so just talk with me if you have an issue or a concern. Happy to help you with that. Really pleased to announce that the dining room hours are being extended on September 19th. The lunch time is going to be from 11 to 1, and the supper time is 4 to 6, and those are the seating times. And we're excited about that. We've been working on that for a long time. And finally, we're in a position where we can extend those hours. Friends and family are invited Monday through Friday. We do not have the staffing yet for the weekends, but we are working on that. So that's an important thing. And we're all excited about extending those hours. I know that's been a major issue for a number of residents, and we're excited that we're finally able to get back to those more normal hours. These hours are very similar to what we had before the pandemic, and so hopefully you'll be able to take advantage of that. I recently received a resident petition, and it was asking for three things. One is to expand the dining room hours. The second is to return things back to the menu that were previously on the menu. And finally, an issue relating to human resources. There's a letter that will be going out from me today, talking more in detail about this. But again, we have already announced that the hours are being expanded, so that issue has been resolved. Then the second issue is returning items to the menu. Now, several weeks ago, we returned to 4 entrees a day, 4 special entrees a day, and that's up from 2, and that's the same number that we had before the pandemic, so that's expectation. Today, we have a different daily menu, or alternative menu, and it says sandwiches, and there are other things available. What we realized through the petition and through the language is that there are off menu items that are being offered that we do provide to people, but we haven't told you. But I also know that for the purpose of brevity, like with sandwiches and some of the other things, we have put things together. So like hamburger or cheeseburger are on the same line. In prior time, they were on separate lines. The reason I say that is I compared our menu. At least, I took some days at random, but I compared our menu from before the pandemic, as this is what we used, and what we had before was 4 entrees each day, 2 or 3 side dishes, and then desserts. The desserts have actually almost always been pre-prepared, meaning that we have baked the cookies, but the cookies have come in pre-prepared dough that we buy. So those things are not prepared to order or scratch cooked. Occasionally things were, but not very often. But then the items available on the daily menu are pretty much listed here. A number of them are actually on this, but we've noticed that some things aren't, and that's for a couple different reasons. One is, if something is not something that we've been able to get consistently, and that's been a problem with supply, we've been reticent to put it on. But I'll explain what we're going to do about that in a moment. Some items have had such low demand that they were not used very much, and so we were discarding a lot of good product after it met expiration dates. And veggie burgers are a really good example of that. We'd sell 1 or 2 a week, and we ended up throwing bulk veggie burgers away. Some other items would have a brief high demand when we offered it as a test, and then it would go to a very low demand. So those things, what we do is we try to put those on the daily alternating menu, and I'll explain a little bit more on that in a bit. We do have a rotating 13-week menu, meaning that every 13 weeks it changes, and that's because if you see everything consistently the same all the time, it gets very old. And so we do have a rotating 13-week menu, which is what we've always offered. So many of the things that appear like they're not on the menu appear that way. They're not listed, but they're either part of the rotating menu because the demand was brief, they're off because we cannot get consistency, or then there's a third option, and it's off menu. We've had them, but we haven't told you that they're available. And so what we are going to do is we're adding a section on the menu, just a statement. We do have other things available, and because we're not sure when and if we will have everything all the time, we encourage you just to ask the server. And we're looking at printing new menus down the road as well, and we want to make them a little bit more illustrative of what we do offer. I did take the time to compare what we had before with what we have now, and it certainly has the appearance that we have less items. Again, some of the items that are in the petition are things that we had on the alternating menu, but have alternated, 13-week period has ended, and so we're going to a different menu cycle. Those items will come back. So I think that might address a lot of the issues. And again, some of the things, we have left off the menu because we either couldn't provide it consistently or other issues as I've described. So we are working on that, and that's a good point for the off-menu items. We're trying to get them on menu so that to make things a little bit more apparent to residents. We do have an active monthly food committee, and they have been working on and with these items with our food and beverage leadership, and we encourage you, as we've mentioned before, that we have a food committee. We've been mentioning that almost monthly in the executive director meetings, and so you can get on that committee. You can do that by calling either Bruce or Rose Tarquinio, who lives over in Hillside. And we appreciate the work that's being done by the food committee in helping us work through some of these challenges. These have been challenging times, as you know, and you already know about that. We handle personnel issues internally, and I can't say a whole lot about that. When we do get a complaint, either from a resident or staff member, we do follow up. But just like when a food item isn't to your liking, we ask that people let us know immediately so we can fix it. And it's the same thing. If you see something and there's an issue, we ask you to let us know, either in human resources or me, or the supervisor of whatever area that they're working in. I've heard other things from people, but you need to understand we have a very clear and distinct grievance policy, and we have a way of working with it. And contrary to popular belief, or contrary to what was said in the petition, they're saying that it's inherently flawed. It's something that we take very seriously, the grievance policy, and we do it. I know sometimes staff will complain because they're either blowing off steam or else they have a legitimate claim, and we ask residents to let them know that we have a grievance policy. We have some who have not used the grievance policy and still complain, and we investigate. We don't find the answers to their liking, so they continue to complain sometime. And that's highly inappropriate. And that's why we have a grievance process where we can sit down and carefully investigate. And we do handle that. And personnel matters, of course, I can't talk about it. It's just like with HIPAA, I can't really talk about what happens from one resident to another in terms of their health care and services. And so we do handle those internally. And we also have consultants that overlook us, both from LCS and we have other people as well. And we are concerned, and we have heard the concerns, and concerns have been or are being addressed. So I want to be clear about that. This will be in the letter as well. Locking of doors. The front doors are normally locked around 8 o'clock, and security locks them. If they're on an emergency call at the time, sometimes it gets delayed. And if they're helping somebody or something like that, sometimes it can be a little bit late. But they're generally locked around 8 p.m. Now, we've heard of other people getting into the building, and what sometimes happens is residents let people in, or they block open a door that should be locked. And we ask residents not to do that. We really want visitors to come through the front commons so that they can be properly screened. And we do still have our screening. Relative to other things, COVID is still alive and well. It's probably as infectious as ever now. And the percentages of infection in the county are still very, very high. Last I saw was over 25%, which is about the highest we've seen. It's just we've gotten used to the high percentages. So we still encourage people wear masks in group. We don't, in group settings, we don't require it, but we anticipate, we know we're all adults here, and we ask you to use your own wisdom and insight. We do have a couple cases normally of folks who are quarantining because of exposure or because of the actual illness, and we monitor that on a daily basis through the clinic. We have added a limited parking time to some of the parking spaces in front of the commons. It's now at 4 hours, and that is in response to a direct resident request, and it makes sense that we do that because that's really the space where patio homeowners and others are coming and going and not spending a lot of time. We also have our prospects coming in that way too, and so that way there's good space to welcome all of our visitors. Finally, we're excited that the funding for the dog park is going very well. As you may or may not know, Rolling Green has excuse me, has received some donations along the way that we're able to assign to the dog park project. So every dollar that's donated now for the dog park actually becomes $2 because we're using prior gift funds for a match. The prior gift funds were either undesignated or designated for something like this. So we always try to use gifts for what they were given for, and we have those discussions with donors. Let me just take a moment. I'm excited that we are making progress in the dining. I'm excited that we are looking forward to a year ahead, and we know that inflation and budgeting and all those things are a concern. We have a good life here, and we offer a lot of experiences and things to people that creates meaningful and enjoyable time. So I ask that you enjoy your day. Thank you for your time.